Thank you so much, Shashank, for doing this, right? Coming on a Sunday to do this podcast and spending time with us. So I've possibly know you from the last 3-4 months, right? But for the audience, you're pretty new, right? At least for my audience and for the people that know at least Mello. So if you can give us a quick intro, that would be really, really helpful.
So sure. Prior to joining Google, I currently work as Google as a sales manager. So my team generally looks into all these startups which want to acquire users. So we help them with their acquisition strategy. I've been with Google for close to 8 years now. Prior to this, I was doing my MBA from IMT Ghaziabad, and prior to that, I was working with Accenture as a software engineer. So typical story from engineering, moved on to MBA. And then content creation is something that I started some 2 years back. So 2 years back, I identified a gap in the market that salaried professionals are not getting decent information on topics such as say HRA or making a job switch or maybe upskilling themselves. So that is where I started this page called That Salaried Guy, and it has grown decently in last 2 years. We have touched more than 6 lakh plus lives, and there are close to 7 lakh plus followers across different social media channels. The content strategy is fairly simple to help people out in their professional and personal growth. And podcasting is something that I also started very recently. So I have a channel by name of Growthcast. Again, intent there is to call professionals who are working in the industry and get their knowledge and their nuggets of wisdom that can help audience grow in their career journey.
Damn, dude. I mean, like so much things, right? So let me just list down, right? You have done content creation, working at Google, right? Being a postgrad, right? I'm also aware that you're a parent as well, right? Married to a newborn, and doing this podcast, right? So I think the first question that always goes with, which is like, how do you really manage your job, content creation, podcast, parenthood all together?
So I think it goes back to basic fundamental principle कि आप prioritization कैसे करते हैं. Initially, when content creation journey started, I was doing everything on my own. So right from shooting, idea identification, then editing, everything I was doing on my own. So it was taking a lot of time out of my personal life as well. Then my kid happened, and once you become a parent, a lot of time goes investing in your child. You spend time with them, then there are times that they will require your attention. So that is where I identified कि अब थोड़ा let go करना पड़ेगा. So then you need to put systems in place. You need to bring in people who are much more efficient than you, who can give you some time back. So that is where I started building a team. Now we have a decent team. You guys help me out with the LinkedIn strategy, with my newsletter strategy. Then there are people who help me out with my reel strategy. There's a proper editing team in place. So initially it was very difficult for me as a person to give the control because I wanted everything to be under my supervision. But slowly I've realized that there are people better than you who can do those things. So better focus on creating content and executing. So that is where prioritization plays a very important role. If I talk about my work side, so since I've been working for 8 years, working on Google Ads, so it has now become kind of muscle memory. So work for me starts at 9 o'clock, it finishes by 6:30. Then I have some decent amount of time. And since I have outsourced most of the work when it comes to doing the research or editing, then it hardly takes me an hour or hour and a half on a daily basis to churn out the content.
Damn, dude. I mean, this is so really, really helpful. So, you create content on Instagram, right? And your working professional is the main target audience, as far as what I know, right? One of the questions that they always get, right? Like, how do they switch their careers, right? That's the basic question that every working professional has, at least in their initial journey. What advice do you have for them?
So if I talk about current job market, this job market is completely different than what it was in 2021. 2021, people were switching at say 100%, 150% hike, but that is not true in this job market. So if you are looking out for switch, then basically look at two major things. First is that if you are getting a decent hike, then only go for the switch. If you feel that hike thing is not there, then second thing that you should look at is that are you saturating in your current job? These are the two things that you should look in this particular job market, and also have some realistic expectation. Because in this job market, what I read, what I interact with the followers, hike is generally 20 to 25%. So if you are only looking for hike and going ahead for switch, then it will become really difficult for you, because in the current job, if you do really well, you might get promoted, you might get better hike, and you will not destabilize yourself as well. So if you're looking out for switch, then just look at if you are saturating in your current role. And second thing is that you have to look at what is the kind of hike that you are getting. If it's more than 50-60%, then better go for it. Otherwise, if you feel you're doing well in your job, then in this job market, at least stay in your job only, because there is a lot of uncertainty.
So, I mean, I've seen this job market of 2021, right? And I think I feel glad to be a part of it as well, right? I mean, I have increased my salary almost 3x in like almost 1.5 years because the market was just
booming,
right?
Funding coming in,
so much funding. I've spent like at a ROAS of 0.4 as well in EdTech, right? I mean, people are spending crores and everyone was fine with it.
Right.
कि ठीक है पैसा आ जाएगा. But I agree to, what is and the current job market doesn't allow it at all, right? But I think what my question was majorly on the front कि switch एक बात है. But if someone wants to shift their career,
right.
People want to shift their careers as well, right? Nobody knows in their college, right? I mean, you started as an engineer and possibly not doing engineering now, right? So I think you also switched in some way, right? How do you think that people can switch their careers to, let's say they are in sales and they want to go to marketing? What are the steps they should do it?
Yeah, so I think there's a very simple principle that I follow is 40-30-30. So basically, if you are in a particular role, you want to move to a newer role, then you have to see that at least there is 40% overlap with the work you are doing. So if you're a business analyst, you want to become a management consultant, then there is some work of management consultant that you are already doing. 30% is you should look at the skills that you can easily gather for that particular role. Again, going back to example of a business analyst, if I want to become a management consultant, then I know that now communication is something that I need to double down because I've been doing work in the back end. Now I need to work on it. And 20% is the headroom that you need to identify what that particular jump will give you. So this is the basic fundamental that you have to look at it. And if you're not looking at it, then in mentally you should be prepared for a pay cut. Because say if you are from a sales field and you want to become a data scientist or business analyst, you don't have any credibility for that particular role. So why somebody in this job market will pay you the same salary that you are getting for the role that you are in? So these two things you need to identify. The role where you have a strong overlap. If there is no overlap, please be mentally prepared. Then you have to get a pay cut, and then only you can make that successful switch.
Well, that's a great framework, right? I mean, at least I have switched my career 6 times, right? From like almost doing sales to then finance, then marketing, then stand-up comedy for almost a year, and then again coming back to the entrepreneurship. I think what has worked in my case, right, was that you possibly have to upskill well before in advance.
Right.
You possibly, let's say I want to shift to marketing, right? I will possibly start doing these workshops of influencer marketing or performance marketing 6 months back.
Right.
And somewhere down the line, I felt that, I mean, of course, having a pay cut is one thing, right? But people do not still give opportunities.
Right.
I mean, कोई तुम्हें क्यों ही marketing का budget देगा, right? 50 lakh के दिन spend करके आओ, right?
Right.
I think what I figured it out in my case was that I worked in a startup.
Right.
So when I was in a startup at a very early stage, they had a seed round. And somewhere down the line, I was in a journalist role, right? अब उनको marketer चाहिए, funding उठा ली, तो या तो वो hire करे बाहर से,
या तो इंटरनल किसी को एलिवेट कर दें.
हाँ, तो उनको 3 महीने लग जाते हायर करने में, 2-3 महीने कोई भी ढंग का बंदा हायर करने में, राइट? उन्होंने सोचा इसी बंदे को सिखा देते हैं, राइट? अब इसको कोर्सेज तो इसने करे ही हुए हैं, राइट? इसको 4-5 बंदों से मिलवा देते हैं. सो माय फाउंडर गॉट मी इंट्रोड्यूस टू पीपल एट सिकोया, राइट? कि चलो उनके ग्रोथ हेड से वहां से बात करो, माइग्लैम से बात करो. And then I learned it, and somewhere down the line, within 4 months itself, like I was spending like about 50-60 lakhs a month, and I was like, हो गया मेरा marketing shift, right? So I think opportunities can come at any point of time, right? When you're switching a career, I think the major thing that one needs to do is कि are you prepared for it or not?
Right. See, I told you 40-30-20. ये भी मिला के 90 होता है, 100 नहीं होता है. 10 is your intent also. कि अगर आपने switch किया, like in your case, you took up marketing, you upskilled yourself. अगर किसी को केवल switch करना था, तो वहां पे जाके they might feel stuck कि यार अब ये तो कर लिया है, पर इससे पहले वाला बेटर था, यहाँ पे there is no headroom या मेरे को मजा नहीं आ रहा. तो वो 10% इंटेंट का भी रोल रहता है if you are looking for those kind of switches. And yes, opportunity can come. I can give you example. So one of my friend's wife, she did a executive MBA, distance learning executive MBA from IIM Ahmedabad, and internally in the company she was in a software engineering role, and a program manager role came up. So that opportunity came out of blue, but she had these skills, so she went out to her skip and discussed about it. She got that particular opportunity. तो वो थोड़ा इंटेंट का भी बहुत मेजर रोल रहता है if you are making that switch, क्योंकि क्लियर होना चाहिए. ये नहीं होना चाहिए कि चले गए फिर लग रहा है यार ये पहले वाला बेटर था, तो फिर आप वापस जाओगे तो वो आपके करियर ग्राफ में it doesn't look good.
Yeah, 100%. So I mean, another like some like touching on the working professionals part only, right? One thing is on the front that they have, but we had a lot of people as well, and we see the basic is that they do resume mistakes. Right. I have some pointed out too, but according to you, what are some of the common 3 mistakes that people make in their resume?
So I think one mistake that I keep on seeing the topmost is that people give a certification that whatever I have written in the resume is very accurate and I can certify that information is correct. So nobody is asking for that information. That is redundant. Second, I see people rating themselves out. So they will rate themselves, say 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 on digital marketing. And then you are running into a trap because if interviewer grills you during the interview, it will be very difficult for you to justify that you are considering yourself a maestro in particular skill, but you don't have the knowledge to answer the basic question. And third is the grammatical mistake. I think we all have seen the Shark Tank episode where Dipinder Goyal was blasting one of the founders because they had a grammatical mistake in their banner. So grammatical mistake is also something. These are top three.
I mean, lovely, right? I mean, these are very helpful. I think what I figured it out, and this may be a very something that people may not like it, is I think I just spend money on getting my resume made by someone else after a while. Right. I think this 1,500, 2,500 rupees really not costing you enough, right? I mean, if you really think about it, this is actually getting you a job at a very great company, right? So you will always, the payback is very easy. Right. I think when I was looking for from a brand marketer to a growth marketer, what I did very easily was that I just spoke to 3 people on TopMate. I will pay you 2,000 rupees, just get me the resume better. And I got a job offer, right? I mean, of course, an interview, and then of course, that's the only thing a resume can do, right? Interview. So I think they're very underrated. People say that नहीं पैसे क्यों खर्च करने resume में, मतलब 1,500 रुपए resume में क्यों खर्च कर लोगे, right? But then you're spending like 1,500 rupees on your pizzas as well.
Right. So in US generally this is an established industry. People pay $150, $200 for getting their resume revamped. So if you get a professional writer, but again there you need to be involved. It's not like कि सौरभ ने बस outsource कर दिया और सामने वाले ने कहानी लिख दी. Stories need to come from you, achievements need to come from you. You have to be equally involved. It's just that कि उसको कैसे better represent करना है using action verbs, using bullet pointers. Those are the things that they can help you out with because ATS is a devil. आपको उसको beat करना ही पड़ेगा to get to the shortlist. And one way to beat it is make sure that your resume is replica of job description. So that thing, if somebody else is doing better than you, then go ahead and maybe utilize those services. Yeah.
All right, that's a great point, right? Shashank, you have almost a decade of a career, right? So what are some of the common, mistakes that people make in their 20s, right? Is something that I think everyone wants to know. Yeah. What is your take on it?
I think 20s are meant for exploring. One thing that I particularly feel that I missed out was during 2012, I was in Bangalore. And then there was an advertisement from a company named Flipkart that we are hiring category managers. So that was the time when Flipkart was only selling books. I was already in an established job at Accenture. The pay was not that great, but I was in a big corporate job. So that time, one time thought came to me that maybe explore this out. Then I stopped myself back saying कि नहीं यार अभी ये risk नहीं लेते हैं, अभी तो सही job में क्या ही दिक्कत है. But if I would have joined in 2012, then right now I would have been financially independent क्योंकि जिस तरह से company का sell out हुआ, उसके बाद जिस तरह की wealth create हुई initial employee के लिए, that was humongous. तो 20s are meant for exploring. So मेरे से कोई पूछता है तो I say कि यार या तो कुछ अपना start कर लो या किसी startup में चले जाओ कि तुम्हारी learning exponential हो जाए. If you do all of these things, उसके बाद आपको लगता है कि यार अब अभी भी मेरा नहीं हो पा रहा बड़ी कंपनीज में, इतना एक्सपीरियंस गैदर कर लिया, then all of the experience that you have in 20s, you can easily give GMAT, crack a decent college in US and go ahead and get that degree, and then you will be on a career journey which will be exponential compared to अगर आप एकदम established job से start करते हो. तो 20s में थोड़ा explore करना चाहिए. I think one trend that I don't like which is picking up कि लोग कहते हैं कि यार मेरे को फायर नंबर अचीव करना है, यूट्यूब पे कंटेंट क्रिएट करेंगे, 20s के बाद हम करोड़पति बन जाएंगे. सो दिस इज नॉट हाउ थिंग्स वर्क. जनरली 1 out of say 10,000 20,000 क्रिएटर विल मेक इट थ्रू और बाकी स्ट्रगल ही करते रह जाते हैं. तो आपकी एक सॉलिड जॉब होना तो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. इफ यू वांट टू मे बी हैव अ लॉन्ग टर्म करियर, फाइनेंशियल ऑब्लिगेशंस है, घर में सबकी हेल्प करनी है, तो सिर्फ कंटेंट क्रिएट करके आप नहीं रह सकते, कुछ मीनिंगफुल भी करना पड़ेगा आपको उसके अलावा भी आउटसाइड दैट.
Lovely. I mean, they're so helpful, right? I mean, we work with a bunch of content creators and I agree so much to whatever you said, right? So I think people have this thing in freelancing, right? Ki, yeah, you call it a freelancing, right? Ki 1 gig आ गई, एक sponsor आ गया and they paid you about 1.5 lakhs for one thing. And people like, अरे ये तो best है. मतलब यही तो अब ये बस 2 आ जाए ऐसे महीने में और साल में 24 हो गया, मतलब यही तो अब करना है लाइफ में, right? Particularly. But then they don't realize कि it doesn't come often.
हाँ, यू हैव टू डू लॉट ऑफ बिजनेस डेवलपमेंट. आपके एक भी क्लाइंट अगर खराब हुआ, उसने आपकी किसी भी साइट पे गलत रिव्यूज लिख दिए, तो फिर बाकियों के मन में एक थॉट तो आ जाता है कि जाना चाहिए कि नहीं जाना चाहिए विद दिस पर्टिकुलर पर्सन.
So I think that's common across all the freelance gig economy, right? We call it a gig economy जिसमें content creators, freelancers सब है.
हाँ, everybody.
They just think like कि एक आ गया प्रोजेक्ट 2 लाख का, बस ठीक है, महीने में ऐसे 2 और आने हैं, and then it's 4 lakhs, तो ठीक है, मतलब chill है, मतलब 70-90% मार्जिन के साथ. But I think what I've realized is कि making money on the internet is easy, but I think consistently making money on the
हाँ,
internet.
so even I keep on thinking कि अगर मैं हर फॉलोअर से 1 रुपए ले लूं कि मैं महीने का कंटेंट अच्छा दे रहा हूँ, तो एट 6 लाख आई कैन डिसेंटली अर्न 6 लाख. पर वो होता नहीं है इंडिया में. पीपल आर नॉट यूज्ड टू पेइंग फॉर थिंग्स व्हिच दे जनरली हैव बीन गेटिंग फॉर फ्री. और वो कंसिस्टेंसी के साथ करना इज समथिंग व्हिच इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट. नहीं तो अभी आप देख रहे होते कि जितने कंटेंट क्रिएटर कोर्स बेच रहे हैं सबके ही बिक रहे होते, सभी अभी करोड़पति अरबपति बन चुके होते, पर वो लोग नहीं बन रहे हैं क्योंकि इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट.
Yeah. So I think let's go back to your content creation journey, Shashank, right? What was your reaction when you get the first viral video?
So I have been churning out videos. I started on 22nd Jan 2021. तो 22nd Jan से लेके 24th मार्च तक अराउंड ऐसे ही व्यूज आते थे 3500 6000. फिर एक वैसा वीडियो वायरल हुआ जो मेरे को आइडिया ही नहीं था कि ये कभी वायरल हो सकता है. सो आई वाज रीडिंग न्यूज़पेपर, देयर वाज दिस पीस ऑफ न्यूज सेइंग कि अब आप एक नंबर पे मिस कॉल दे सकते हो व्हेनेवर यू आर इन ट्रेन. तो आपके स्टेशन आने से पहले आपको रेलवे में दोबारा कॉल बैक आ जाएगी और कोई आपको उठा देगा. तो मेरे को थोड़ा फनी लगा, मैंने उस पर बना दिया कंटेंट कि अब ये चीज आ गई है मार्केट में. उसके बाद इतना ज्यादा वायरल हुआ, टच 1.5 मिलियन. एंड आई थिंक बेसिकली व्हेन यू क्रिएट अ कंटेंट आपको आइडिया नहीं रहता कि ये वायरल होगा कि नहीं होगा. देयर आर सर्टेन हुक्स यू पुट इन प्लेस. और इस वाले पे तो मुझे आइडिया ही नहीं था कि ऐसा कुछ होने वाला है. मॉर्निंग में व्हेन आई वोक अप आई सॉ कि सम 700k व्यूज आ चुके हैं. और रात को आई पुट इट अराउंड 10:30 11. वो बेसिकली जब वो हुआ तो मेरे को लगा यार ये तो इंडिया में कुछ भी वायरल हो सकता है. इट्स जस्ट दैट यू नीड टू बी कंसिस्टेंट एंड यू नीड टू कीप ऑन चर्निंग आउट कंटेंट. क्योंकि उसके पहले जो व्यूज थे वो 3000 4000 रहते थे. देन एक चीज मेरे को ये भी समझ में आई कि व्हेनेवर यू आर क्रिएटिंग कंटेंट एटलीस्ट यू शुड क्रिएट अ कंटेंट सच अ वे दैट देयर आर टू स्कूल ऑफ थॉट्स. अब इसमें दो हो गए थे कि किसी ने लिखा कि अच्छा ये सर्विस भी हमें नहीं पता था, कुछ ने आके लिखा कि अरे मैं अपने मोबाइल में अलार्म नहीं लगा लूंगा क्या, मैं क्यों मिस कॉल दूंगा. तो फिर ये भी समझ में आया कि दीज आर द थिंग्स दैट जनरली वर्क आउट. तो आपको थोड़ा कंटेंट क्रिएट करने समय इन सब चीजों का भी ध्यान रखना चाहिए.
All right, but then how do you, and I'm assuming, right, like you do so much of content, right? So assuming you must be getting a lot of negative comments as well, right?
Right.
Like how do you really handle that?
So initially I was having a knee jerk reaction कि मैंने तो यार अच्छा कंटेंट चर्न आउट किया. आई नेवर डू क्लिक बेट कंटेंट, आई नेवर टॉक अबाउट थिंग्स जो एक्चुअल में फैक्चुअली करेक्ट नहीं है. बट जब उस पे नेगेटिव कमेंट्स आते थे तो फिर थोड़ा शुरू में बुरा लगता था. शुरू में आई यूज्ड टू रिप्लाई, आई यूज्ड टू पिक अप अ फाइट कि मैं जाके लिखता था कि यार ये कैसे बोल दिया तुमने. देन आई यूज्ड टू डू अ लॉट ऑफ रिसर्च. फिर पॉइंटर्स के साथ में लड़ने आ जाता था कि यार ये गलत है. फिर धीरे धीरे मेरे को समझ में आया कि इफ यू आर एट अ स्केल ऑफ 500 600k तो नो पॉइंट. क्योंकि अगर ऐसा ही होता है कि सारी चीजों के लिए सारे लोग आपके साथ होते फिर तो डेमोक्रेसी में जो है 100% वोट चाहिए होता है आपको सरकार बनाने को. दैट यू मेक इट एट 33%. तो इसका मतलब अगर 3 आउट ऑफ 10 भी आपके कंटेंट से खुश है तो खुश है, फिर आपने उसमें ज्यादा ध्यान नहीं देना. इवन रीच आउट टू अंकुर वारिकू थ्रू मेल. आई डिस्कस्ड विद हिम कि ऐसा आ रहा है, अब बताइए क्या करना चाहिए. तो उन्होंने कहा दिस इज जस्ट एंगेजमेंट, तो आप उस पर उतना ध्यान क्यों दे रहे हो. यू जस्ट फोकस ऑन द थिंग दैट यू आर गुड एट. तो अब थोड़ा सही हो गया. पर इनिशियली तो बहुत बुरा लगता था यार, अच्छा करने जाओ सुबह सुबह गाली पड़ गई और फिर आप ऑफिस भी जा रहे हो, आपने देखा 3 लोग ने कमेंट कर रखे उल्टे सीधे.
Ma'am. So very interesting. And that's a great example, 33% की democracy वाला. So I tell you, what happened like in our case, right? So I think back in the day, I used to write jokes, right? So when I was in finance, right, I had no idea that I have this skill of writing jokes as well, right? And somewhere down the line, I just put that I left my job at Siemens.
Okay.
So I was very free for the first 2 months, right? And I just told my father and mom, like, मुझे startup करना है, right? And they said कि जो करना है कर ले. So one day I was literally very free and I started writing jokes, right? And I put that on internet, right? Particularly 1 2 3 4 करा. Somewhere down the line, like within a day itself, I started writing on college jokes. हर college में मैंने एक joke बनाया था, like almost 130 colleges के jokes.
Nice.
So somewhere down the line, सब कह रहे हैं हाँ मेरे college में भी joke बनाओ, right? And I used to do that really often. Within like a 2 days, I don't really remember, like people started knowing me, right? I mean like a Saurav Philog, right? My ex-girlfriend got to know me कि यार मुझे किसी ने तुम्हारा भेजा है, right? Post. And I was like मेरा right? मुझको तो कोई जानता ही नहीं था, right? हमारे तो 200 फॉलोअर थे हमेशा से.
Right.
And so somewhere I got then I got calls from BJP as well. Like ये तुमने ऐसे कैसे लिख दिया हमारे भारतीय कॉलेजेस पे, एंड आई वाज लाइक डूड मैं तो मतलब बस मजाक ही कर रहा हूँ, राइट? एंड आई गॉट कॉल फ्रॉम 8 पीपल कि आपने हमारा स्टैंड अप कॉमेडी का जोक चुराया। मैंने कहा मैंने नहीं चुराया, राइट? मैंने 250 जोक्स लिखे, उसमें कैसे मुझे पता होगा? So I got very scared out of it, right? And I think I stopped putting out content after a while of it.
Right.
मैंने तो छोड़ दिया था, right? But I would have continued. I should have spoken to Ankur Varigo for sure at that time.
Right.
Right. So I think another aspect of, I think the content creation is like, you build somewhere a personal brand, right? A professional brand, I would say. So do you think that working professionals should focus on building their personal brand in general?
Yeah, I think personal brand plays a very important role, because if there are two people who you as a hiring manager are going to choose from, both of them are equally good, then I think the differentiating factor is how one person is being projected in front of you compared to other. If both are doing great work, both of them are people person, everybody likes them, then I think differentiating factor comes in terms of personal brand. And also what I have seen is that personal brand plays a lot of role in you getting untapped opportunities as well. So say if I know about you, I know about your work, I have say head of a content opening coming up in my team, or say maybe in a startup that I am working with, तो मेरे पास एक सोशल प्रूफ है कि सौरभ जो भी लिखता है वो वर्क करता है, सौरभ जिस तरह से खुद को रिप्रेजेंट करता है वो वर्क करता है. So that can any day go in your favor. If something comes up, then I'll be the first person to reach out to you कि यार अब ये आया है, would you like to take this up? Compared to हो सकता है कोई दूसरा भी हो मार्केट में जो इक्वली हसल कर रहा हो, but then his or her CV needs to come to me, they need to give an interview. तो वो परसेप्शन बिल्ड होने लग जाएंगे 2 से 3 महीने, that you have already built for yourself. So I think personal branding really plays a very important role.
I think so what it does is it filters out things, right? I mean, you already have like so much competition, right? I mean, like I can possibly, there are so many people better than us in many cases.
Right.
It is just that somewhere down the line, I mean, what gets seen at the end of the day, people just choose
जो दिखता है वो बिकता है.
वो बिकता है, right? I think one myth, and I think I just want you to also put one myth about the personal branding front is, I think one myth that we have seen is that people लोग सोचते हैं कि followers ही एक way है करने का. To be honest, what we have seen is in our journey, right, shipping so much content, I think the content which is written very deep, right, it has a deep insights on it, and possibly getting, let's say, 70 likes only, right?
Right.
But 70 likes for meaningful people, right? I think it will really help you a lot, right? We have seen, like, we have one of my mentor, right? We don't work with him, but somewhere, he writes newsletter very, very like once in a 3 months, right? His newsletter is actually being seen by Gaurav Manjal, right? He got a job at Cred because he's written such depth content on Twitter, right? And he doesn't have more than 600 followers. So I think the idea should be with people that, like, don't go with followers and just putting up your images, right? That is okay if you want to do it, but the idea is that you need to post,
right?
If you don't post, then opportunities will not come to you at all. So that is what we feel that people do the mistake. Anything that you have seen कि personal branding पे लोग क्या mistake कर रहे हैं?
नहीं, I think I would like to double down on the thing that you talked about कि आपकी quality of followers बहुत important है, and it becomes really important कि आप किस type के content से उन्हें attract कर रहे हो. So there is this young lad who I keep on talking with, Paras. So he creates content on AI. His follower base is 1,50,000, and the content you will see will get decent views, पर वो follower base उसके साथ stick करता है. Now, because of that, he gets a lot of call from Y Combinator startups that we want to test out certain features, AI features in our app, and we want to reach out to people who are interested in AI in India. So उस time पे वो उसको reach out करते हैं, then he makes his followers maybe test those apps, then he runs some contest and everything. So quality of followers matters instead of you having, say, a huge number of followers. Huge number of followers definitely will matter if you're a travel creator, a fashion creator, because then brands want you to propagate message to a wider set of people. That is one thing. And second, personal branding में I think जो लोग generally mistake करते हैं वो ये करते हैं कि एक साइड बैलेंस्ड अप्रोच नहीं ले पाते. Somebody will churn out a lot of emotional content, somebody will churn out a lot of informational content. I think that is where my interaction with you guys has been really helpful, because now I have understood कि कंटेंट में एक मिक्स होना चाहिए. लाइक इफ यू आर अ बैट्समैन, आपकी लेग साइड ऑफ साइड हर तरफ आपको खेलना आना चाहिए. उसी तरह से इफ यू वांट टू बिल्ड अ पर्सनल ब्रांड, तो लोगों को सारे एस्पेक्ट्स आपकी पर्सनैलिटी के दिखने चाहिए. यू कांट बी जस्ट ओवर इंडेक्सिंग ऑन वन पर्टिकुलर एस्पेक्ट.
So I think I think one thing that I've seen at Shashank with you is that you have networked with people like Sudha Murthy, right? You've gotten on videos. You have like network with so many investors, right? Startup founders, some Shark Tank founders as well. So like I'm assuming that your networking skills have really uh, been really top notch, right? So what are some of the networking tips that you would like to give to the audience?
So I think it's not top notch, it's still work in progress क्योंकि काफी एफर्ट जाता है. बट हाँ, नेटवर्किंग में वन थिंग आई फील दैट वर्क्स इज कि अगर इनिशियली आप किसी से इंटरेक्ट कर रहे हो तो वो ट्रांजैक्शनल नहीं होना चाहिए. सो से इफ आई एम रीचिंग आउट टू यू, आई कैन रीच आउट टू यू विद अ जेन्युइन इंटेंट कि यार सौरभ मेरे को समझना है व्हाट यू आर डूइंग एंड मे बी वी कैन हैव डिस्कशन, और मैं भी कुछ ये चीजें कर रहा हूँ, सो दैट गिव एंड टेक थोड़ा सा ऐसा होगा कि समथिंग यू विल लर्न फ्रॉम मी, समथिंग आई विल लर्न फ्रॉम यू. अगर मैं प्योरली ट्रांजैक्शनल पे जाऊं कि सौरभ ये ओपनिंग आई है प्लीज मेरे को रेफर कर दो, देन यू विल आल्सो फील कि यार ये करके मुझे क्या मिल रहा है और मेरे लिए इसमें क्या है. तो आप एक ही तरफ का ट्रांजैक्शन नहीं कर सकते. इट हैज टू बी अ टू वे ट्रांजैक्शन एंड बोथ ऑफ अस हैव टू गेन समथिंग आउट ऑफ इट. तो इसलिए whenever I try to interact, I interact in a manner कि सामने वाले को भी उससे कुछ मिले. Like if I am meeting Sudha ma'am, so Sudha ma'am के साथ the intent was to talk about the women follower base that I have, क्योंकि पेज पे 50% women followers are there, और most of them whenever I speak with them they tell me कि बहुत ज्यादा inspiration they draw from her. So I met her, then it was like कि ठीक है मैम, you are doing a book signing वाला event, so we will talk about that event, but also we have a follower base जिसको अगर आप थोड़े nuggets of wisdom देते हो then they will learn a lot. And she is very graceful, she agreed because this is what message she also wants to propagate कि more and more women should come to workforce, they should take up the heavy lifting वाला thing, they should grow in their career. So इस तरह से you have to figure out कि दोनों के लिए कुछ ना कुछ हो, then only networking का effect kicks in. अगर केवल आप चाहो कि इस रिलेशनशिप से वन वे ही रहे, सामने वाला मेरे को देता रहे, देन इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट कि वो कभी लॉन्ग टर्म या सस्टेनिंग बनेगी भी.
But like fair enough, right? कि two way communication, two way help होना चाहिए. But I always wonder is like what if someone who is let's say 22 years old,
Right.
want to take help from let's say a very big shot guy, right? Maybe an investor. How should he approach then? उसके पास तो कुछ देने को है ही नहीं.
हाँ.
वो कैसे करेगा फिर वो?
नहीं, आई थिंक दो चीजें हैं देने को, या तो आपके पास स्किल है या आपके पास अपना टाइम है. सो से इफ आई वांट टू रीच आउट टू अ इन्वेस्टर हु इज हेवीली इन्वेस्टिंग इन स्टार्टअप्स, आई एम अ 22 ईयर ओल्ड, देन आई नो कि डायरेक्टली जाऊंगा तो शायद वहां फेस टाइम ना मिले बिकॉज अदर पर्सन इज आल्सो वेरी बिजी. बट देन आई आल्सो नो कि दिस पर्टिकुलर पर्सन कीप्स ऑन इन्वेस्टिंग इन से D2C स्टार्टअप्स. ही रिसेंटली इन्वेस्टेड इन अ स्टार्टअप, ही और शी, जहां पे उसने 1 मिलियन डाले. देन आई कैन रीच आउट टू दोस फाउंडर्स, आई कैन टेल कि अगर आपके पास इंटर्नशिप अपॉर्चुनिटी है तो मे बी आई लाइक टू कम एंड वर्क विद यू, मे बी हेल्प यू आउट. मैं अभी कॉलेज में हूँ, सेकंड थर्ड ईयर में, आई हैव फ्री टाइम, मे बी आई कैन डू सोशल मीडिया मार्केटिंग फॉर यू. अगर मैं वहां पे क्रेडिबिलिटी बिल्ड करता हूँ, देन आई कैन आस्क देम कि आप मेरे को उनसे इंट्रोड्यूस कर सकते हो क्या. तो बीच में कनेक्टिंग लीवर तो आपको खोजना पड़ेगा. नोबडी विल कम एंड गिव देयर टाइम टू यू जस्ट बिकॉज यू वांट टू इंटरेक्ट विद देम, बिकॉज एवरीबडी हैज देयर ओन जर्नी, सबके अपने कुछ कुछ कमिटमेंट्स पहले से होते हैं. सो वहां पे आपको बीच में कोई एक ऐसा रेन मेकर टाइप ऑफ पर्सन आइडेंटिफाई करना पड़ेगा हु विल do those introductions for you. So I think that is one thing that you have to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough, right? I think what has worked, I think in general for me is, of course, I don't use it for networking. But if I want to speak to one person and somewhere down the line, I know that this person is out of my reach for sure.
Right, right.
What I do is that I go to events where they are also present.
That is also a good way.
I tell them like, I just need boss 2 minutes of your time, right? अब वो तुम निखिल कामत से मिलना चाहते हो तो एक्सपेक्टेशंस ही खराब है तुम्हारी, राइट? बट इफ यू वांट टू मीट समवन हु इज रियली नॉट रीचेबल बट एटलीस्ट बात तो कर सकता है. आई थिंक व्हाट आई डू इज आई गो टू द इवेंट्स, आई टेल देम बॉस आई जस्ट नीड 2 minutes of your time, I just want to say this, I will take your number, and then when the events went over, like I just drop a message to them, and whenever I work I will just drop another message.
Right.
So मेरे को वो 5 में से 2 बार तो हेल्प मिलता ही मिलता है.
हाँ.
तो इवेंट में चले जाओ, मुझे ऐसा लगता है, राइट? एंड कोई भी इवेंट एक्सक्लूसिव नहीं होता, राइट? मतलब सब बोलते हैं एक्सक्लूसिव इवेंट, सबको अपना भरना होता है इवेंट. एंड अगर तुम जेन्युइनली रिक्वेस्ट करोगे, देन आई हैव पीपल like a friends who have got into Sam Altman events as well just because they requested.
Right. I think networking events also बहुत ज्यादा रोल इम्पोर्टेंट प्ले करते हैं, क्योंकि वहां पे आप कैच कर सकते हो और वहां पे सामने वाले को ये भी नहीं पता कि आप किस इंसेंटिव या मोटिव से रहो. तो आप जनरली जेन्युइनली लगता है कि हाँ, यू आर कमिंग टू कनेक्ट, एक बार बात करके. बट अगेन देयर यू शुड हैव योर, लाइक यू टॉक्ड अबाउट 2 minute, वो एलिवेटर पिच रेडी होनी चाहिए कि से आई एम सौरभ, आई हैव दिस सेट ऑफ एक्सपर्टीज, आई एम डूइंग दिस, and then maybe at somewhere down the line I'd like your mentorship or guidance. तो ये भी पता हो कि हाँ यार कुछ है बैकग्राउंड. अब मैंने कई इवेंट में ये भी देखा है कि लोग सीधे आते हैं और कहते हैं विल यू बी इंटरेस्टेड इन डूइंग अ सीड राउंड। अरे भाई मुझे पता ही नहीं है कि तुमने क्या कर रखा है, तुम्हारी क्रेडिबिलिटी क्या है, हमने एक बार भी बात नहीं की और सामने से तुरंत पैसे अगर मांग लिए तो फिर वो तो किसी के साथ भी फ्लाई नहीं करता। तो थोड़ा एक क्रेडिबिलिटी बिल्ड करनी पड़ती है। यू शुड हैव योर एलिवेटर पिच रेडी।
Lovely, for sure. So I think so I work with a lot of Gen Zs as well, right? Your audience is also, I think, of course, working professionals, but a lot of them
Yeah.
would be Gen Z too. What are some of the things that you find missing in Gen Z these days in workforce?
No, I think one thing that I particularly feel, and maybe not their fault, it was fault of the situation that 2021 में there were exuberant salaries.
Yeah.
So whenever I talk about, say, starting a job that pays you 6 lakh, 7 lakh, I feel that is not getting same attention from Gen Z compared to, say, somebody who was in the workforce before 2021. तो उन्हें लगता है कि यार ये तो बहुत ही स्मॉल सैलरी है जिसपे स्टार्ट हो रही है 6-7 लाख। एटलीस्ट फेयर मार्केट वैल्यू इज 13-14 लाख, बट हार्श रियलिटी है कि दिस इज नॉट ट्रू। तो थोड़ा आई थिंक सैलरी वाली एक्सपेक्टेशन मिसमैच इज देयर, because I come from a generation in 2012-2013 when these companies, Infosys, TCS, were paying 3.25। तो मेरे लिए तो वही बेंचमार्क है कि यार इतना पे करते थे, आज आप कितना ग्रो कर गए। इन कंपनियों ने अपना पैकेज नहीं बढ़ाया है, बट लोगों की अब एक्सपेक्टेशन इतनी ज्यादा बढ़ गई है कि यार 2021 में तो इस तरह की सैलरीज मिलती थी। माई there was one person who was super junior to me in college, so within 3 years of experience he got a package of 80-90। तो अब when you speak with him then he is like कि अरे ग्रोथ नहीं हो रही, ग्रोथ नहीं हो रही, बट रियलिटी इज कि यार अभी 10 साल के एक्सपीरियंस वाले भी उतने पे ही बैठे हैं। वो एनॉर्मली ईयर था, तो आपको थोड़ा अपनी एक्सपेक्टेशन को रियलाइन करना चाहिए इन दिस जॉब मार्केट। आई थिंक थोड़ा जेंजी उस पे ज्यादा फोकस कर सकते हैं।
100%, right? I mean, that's on point, right? 2021 market is a different market altogether, right? People I have seen in my journey as well, people are like, earning 8, they are just like कि मैं बैंगलोर चले जाता हूँ, 12 मिल रहा है सेम जॉब का।
हाँ,
And I was like कि भाई तूने तो 100% स्विच 3 महीने में मान लिया, right? And that's like very often, and of course वो problems आए हैं, right? I mean, we have seen the salaries have come down
अब एक्चुअल में हो क्या रहा है कि कंपनीज हैव रियलाइज दिस। तो अगर जहां पे ले ऑफ हो रहे हैं, सो रोल या तो एक लेवल नीचे ओपन हो रहा है, या तो करंट रोल की सैलरी 15-20% से वो नीचे ओपन अप कर रहे हैं। तो ये भी बड़ी डिफिकल्टी है कि अगर समबडी इज लूजिंग अ जॉब, दे आर ऑलरेडी एट 70-75, दूसरी जगह अपॉर्चुनिटी है 55-60 की मिल रही है। तो ये भी आई थिंक इज अ शॉकर फॉर मेनी पीपल। बट रियलिस्टिकली अगर वो ईयर नहीं आया होता जब इतनी फंडिंग फ्लो इन की थी, तो ग्रेजुअल ग्रोथ इसी डायरेक्शन में थी।
100%. So let's talk about your Google journey a bit, right? One thing that I mean, I would just love to know, right? I mean, you were in non-tech role, not an engineering role, if I've understood correctly. What are some of the salary expectations one can have in a non-tech role when they start working with Google?
Got it. I think right now the salaries that we generally hire for people are experienced professional. But if I go back to my college days when Google came, so that time they were offering 12.5 lakh fixed. Then since you are in a sales role, there is a variable component as well. So variable component at that level which was offered in college was 35%. Then there are ESOPs. So these are three basic components. As you move up in the ladder, your variable component keeps on increasing. It can go from 35 to 45, then 50. In some roles, say which are into cloud source, variable component can be slightly higher also. So in sales, you have these two components. When I started in college, overall CTC which was offered to me at IMT Ghaziabad was 25 lakh. And I think that might have been revised because of inflation and all, but this is what it was. And similarly, if I have spoken with my friends who were in bids and were doing masters, when they got into likes of Amazon and Google, they were earning slightly higher because these are tech companies at the end of the day. So tech salaries are generally higher compared to non-tech roles that was there.
Yeah. So I think what I've also understood is someone like sales, right? I think the best way to increase salary is to go to B2B SaaS, right? Or a tech company, right? I mean, salaries are comparatively almost 2x of what you generally get in any other sales role.
Right.
And of course, people need to encounter these variables as well, right? Most of the times in sales role, you see a CTC of let's say 60 lakhs.
Right.
But these can the variable be है.
हाँ, हो सकता है.
Which people are like just miss out on it, right? कि their CTC 60 लाख है, right? But 60 का उसने ITR नहीं fill करा है. इसने शायद 34 का ही करा है. Right. So I think, do you think these things are common?
नहीं, I think sales role में the best part about any sales role is कि you are in control of things. अगर आपका 60 का CTC है, 30 फिक्स्ड है, बाकी 30 पूरा आपके कंट्रोल में, इट डिपेंड्स ऑन कि आप सेल्स में कैसा परफॉर्म कर रहे हो, आपने क्या पाइपलाइन बिल्ड कर रखी है। नाउ सिंस यू आर रनिंग अ स्टार्टअप, यू माइट बी नहीं कि यार मेरा चर्न रेट ये है कि 10 कस्टमर हैं, 10 में से 6 ही रुकते हैं, 4 चले जाते हैं। और अगर आपने अपना एक सेल्स का बंदा बना बैठा रखा है, या मे बी देयर इज समबडी हु इज हेल्पिंग यू आउट, वो एक पाइपलाइन ही इतनी स्ट्रांग बना के रखता है कि आप उसको वेरिएबल जो पे करते हो इस बेसिस की कितना मेरा स्टिकनेस रहता है विद मेलो से 3 मंथ्स और 6 मंथ डाउन द लाइन। तो वो पाइपलाइन बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट रोल प्ले करती है। तो सेल्स में यू कैन हैव अ वाइड हेडरूम, बिकॉज आई टॉक्ड अबाउट 35% वेरिएबल पार्ट, पर ये ऊपर भी जा सकता है। इफ आई अचीव ओवर अचीव द कोटा, देन दिस 35% कैन बी अ पे आउट ऑफ 50%, 60%। इवन सम पीपल हैव मेड whatever they were earning in 1 year, they have made the salary of next year also in same year because they were over achieving their quota. तो ये डिपेंड करता है कि आपकी सेल्स की पाइपलाइन कितनी हेल्दी है। तो कई चीजें कंट्रोल में नहीं होती, पर कुछ होती भी हैं, और these things are basic hygiene that you should have in place.
Yeah. So I mean, fair enough, right? I mean, that's generally I have friends all in the B2B SaaS only, right? And I just look at the salaries are like going at upwards of what, like
Right. I think those must be great salespeople because they might have been maintaining a healthy relationship, a decent pipeline. In fact, any startup, if you talk about the content startup, I keep on talking to people, they already have 10 or 20 prospect जिनसे बात चल रही होती है, क्योंकि आपको आइडिया रहता है कि यार ये सामने वाला हो सकता हो नेक्स्ट मंथ हो सकता हो रिन्यू ना करे, या मे बी दे माइट बैक आउट। तो वो जो भी इसमें ओवर अचीव करता है, उनका काफी माइंडसेट ऐसा रहता है कि आप पहले से ही पाइपलाइन और सारी चीजों पे वर्क करते रहते हो प्रॉपर्ली।
lovely. So one last couple of questions, Shashank. One is on the front of, right, you know, in the budget as well, right? The government has announced almost 1 crore internships, right?
Right.
What do you think that, you know, how does it going to help the colleges as well as the employment, right, or the corporate part, in your opinion?
I think internship was one thing that students were struggling. If I talk about engineering colleges, a recent survey came that only 57% of them are employable right now, basis the skills that they have. And best way to gain skills is through internship only, because we are not taught how to manage our finances in college. We are not taught how to maybe better communicate in college. Those things are missing, and those things you generally learn on the job or when you are working with somebody who is a professional, because कॉलेज में तो माइंडसेट रहता है कि रात में पढ़ो सुबह 2 पास हो जाओ, तो उसके चलते आप हो सकता हो उतना बेटर एम्प्लॉयबल कैंडिडेट ना बन पाए। सो इंटर्नशिप डेफिनेटली प्ले अ रोल। आई थिंक दिस इज अ इनिशिएटिव इन द राइट डायरेक्शन, बिकॉज right now most of the students are struggling with job. If I talk about my Instagram inbox, daily basis I get 100 to 200 messages कि भैया हेल्प कर दो या नौकरी लगवा दो, and even at my scale it's not possible for me to solve, nor for any influencer. So government intervention was much needed. I think with this coming in, at least लोगों को एक फेयर चांस मिलेगा कि आपने स्किल डेवलप कर ली, फिर तो आपके ऊपर है कि आप इंटरव्यू में कैसा परफॉर्म करते हो। तो स्किल डेवलपमेंट के लिए इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट।
So fair enough, right? So I think what is worked in, I think what really happens when someone joins an internship is most of the time, I mean, it's the companies are not going to give you any task, right? In whatever
Right.
I've worked in. But I think it's that the person ability to at least speak to 20 people out there.
Right.
वो 25 लोगों से अगर उसने बात करा है, और ऐसा हो ही नहीं सकता कि उसे एंड में जाके उसको अपॉर्चुनिटी ना मिले।
हाँ, क्योंकि आप 25 से बात करते हो, वो 25 आपके काम को समझते हैं। मे बी हो सकता है उन 25 के अलग 5 लोग से और नेटवर्क हो, तो आप 125 का नेटवर्क अनलॉक कर लेते हो। एंड देन यू कैन टैप इनटू दैट पर्टिकुलर नेटवर्क, लाइक समबडी इफ दे कम एंड जॉइन योर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन टुडे, दे आर मीटिंग यू, दे आर मीटिंग 3 और 4 अदर पीपल हु क्लोजली वर्क विद। अगर उनमें से एक भी इंप्रेस हो गया, तो एटलीस्ट यू हैव वन एडवोकेट फॉर योर कैंडिडेचर हु कैन गो एंड टॉक इन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, या बाहर आपको पिच इन कर सकता है। I think वो तो बहुत important है। Networking basically kicks in once you do an internship.
Sure. I mean, there are companies who do that at a very great skill, right? So HUL does it really well.
Right.
So when I started at Siemens, right? I think at Siemens the thing was that we had a 1-year management training program. So एक साल तुम बस उन्होंने 3 महीने फैक्ट्री में रहोगे, राइट? वो फैक्ट्री भी मतलब ढंग की फैक्ट्री थी, बट 3 महीने फैक्ट्री में रहोगे, 3 महीने कॉर्पोरेट ऑफिस रहोगे, एंड 3 महीने मुंबई रहोगे जो उनका हेडक्वार्टर रहता है,
Right.
एंड 3 महीने तुम लास्ट में ट्रेनिंग करोगे जो तुम्हारा जहाँ पे तुम्हें जाना है। एंड आई थिंक व्हेन यू हैव डन दैट, राइट, ऑलमोस्ट तुम 1 साल वैसे तो खाली ही बैठे हो, बट लोगों से तुम 100-150 लोगों से बात कर लेते हो। एंड आई थिंक द नेक्स्ट ईयर दैट आई स्टार्टेड वर्किंग एक्चुअली ऑन वर्क, राइट, आई थिंक आई वाज एबल टू सॉल्व एनी क्वेरी इन लाइक अ डेज टाइम,
Right.
राइट, बिकॉज आई नो कि हाँ इसको प्रॉब्लम है, फैक्ट्री में प्रॉब्लम है, राइट, सो लेट मी जस्ट कॉल द फैक्ट्री गाय,
Right.
मतलब वो जानता ही अपना, उसके साथ हमने बैठ के खाया पिया है, राइट, आई मीन ही विल बी एबल टू हेल्प अस फॉर श्योर, राइट। I think the internship तो बस गवर्नमेंट ने एक साधन दिया है, राइट?
हाँ,
आई थिंक इट्स द इंटर्न कंपनी कुछ नहीं कराने वाली, वो तो सबको पहले से क्लियर होना चाहिए मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम।
राइट।
1 करोड़ लोगों को क्या ही काम देंगे लोग, राइट? बट आई थिंक व्हाट नीड्स टू बी डन इज कि दे शुड नेटवर्क। वो
हाँ,
नेटवर्क
आपको अपॉर्चुनिटी मिल गई, आप उसको कैसे टैप इन कर रहे हो ये पूरा आपके हाथ में ही है। बिकॉज यू माइट हैव सीन कि एमबीए कॉलेज में कई लोग जाते हैं इंटर्नशिप पे, पर प्री प्लेसमेंट ऑफर थोड़ों को ही मिलता है। मतलब पूरा बैच अगर 200 का है, 50-60 वुड हैव गॉट इट। तो वो 50-60 व्हाट मेक्स देम स्टैंड आउट कि वो कैसे इंटरेक्ट कर रहे थे वहां पे, उन्होंने कैसे नेटवर्क किया, राइट टाइम पे राइट लोगों को कैसे इंप्रेस किया, देन दे गॉट दैट अपॉर्चुनिटी। तो ये तो बहुत बड़ा रोल प्ले करता ही है इंटर्नशिप इन दैट।
Yeah, I mean 100% right. So we had this one rule at Siemens, right? I think my and bunch of friends, right? We used to spend time after office with the senior management, either playing a table tennis or whatever.
राइट, राइट।
Not because हमें सिर्फ उनसे favor ही लेने हैं, right? मतलब वो unintentional होता था, right? And somewhere we realized कि when we had to I have to leave Siemens in 1 month and notice period 3 महीने का है, तो कौन help करेगा तुम्हारी situation में? You go to that person and say कि boss हो गया, right? And I think one, of course, networking is one, but the best way to do that, I think, is after the office hours.
So I'll give you one example of my friend also talking about table tennis. So he was working in a technology which was redundant at Accenture. So he started playing table tennis, and that time big data and Hadoop were picking up like anything. So a senior manager at Accenture, he was also playing with him. So that is where during those 1 or 2 months he built this bond that when the right opening came in his team, ही न्यू ऑलरेडी कि 2 महीने से इससे इंटरेक्शन हो रहा है, ये इंटरेस्टेड है, स्टक फील कर रहा है, इसको मेरे को मूव कराना है। ही गेव दैट अपॉर्चुनिटी टू हिम, ही गेव द इंटरव्यू, एंड सिंस वो इनफॉर्मल इंटरेक्शन में उसने इतनी चीजें बता दी थी कि ये सर्टिफिकेशन कर रखा है, अभी मैं ये कर रहा हूँ, तो ही ऑल्सो न्यू कि इंटेंट कहीं ना कहीं है, एंड ही वॉज एबल टू क्रैक एंड मेक दैट मूव इन दैट पर्टिकुलर रोल, जो कि ऐसे हो ही नहीं पाता। बिकॉज आईजेपी अगर खुलता तो टीम में हो सकता और भी लोग थे जिनके पास वो स्किल थी, they would have maybe grabbed on that opportunity, but because of this networking he was able to crack it.
Yeah, I mean, I just like in the best policy, right? Which is, if you want to network, do it after the office hours.
Right.
Do it on a beer if required, and that works, right? I think people say कि नहीं तुम्हें नहीं required होती ये चीजें network, मुझे तो लगता है I think it works. Every time I've smoked with someone, I've got some benefit. But anyway, right? One last question, Shashank. Right. Next, we have worked with Mello, right? How is your experience working with Mello?
So I initially talked about कि at one point you have to let go, you have to bring in the expertise, and I think that is what Mello brings to the table. आपके दिमाग में कई ideas होते हैं as a creator, कई बार ऐसा होता है कि clutter create हो जाता है, आपको लगता है नहीं यार ये सही है, but you need somebody जो आपको non-biased opinion दे, who is able to guide you, tell you कि no, these are the way the things work, और वहां पे फिर आपको इस तरह से गाइड करे कि you are able to build a solid content strategy in your mind. So I think that is where Mello comes into picture. कि काफी वेल रिसर्च कंटेंट रहता है, अगर आपके दिमाग में भी कुछ थॉट स्टार्टर्स हैं उसके टॉप पे बिल्ड हो पाता है, एंड देन देयर इज टीम व्हिच इज ऑलवेज रिसेप्टिव इफ यू गिव देम सम फीडबैक, यू टॉक अबाउट कि नहीं मेरे को चीजें ऐसी चाहिए, दे आर एबल टू मे बी हैव अ मीनिंगफुल एंड थॉटफुल डिस्कशन विद यू कि ठीक है अगर ऐसे कर रहे हैं तो इस तरह से ये चीजें पैन आउट करेंगी। देन प्लस वी आर वेरी ऑब्जेक्टिव व्हेन वी एवर मी एंड आई यू एंड मी इंटरेक्ट, तो वहाँ ऑब्जेक्टिविटी भी रहती है कि यार ये चीज वर्क करेगी ये नहीं करेगी, डेटा पॉइंटर्स के बेसिस पे डिस्कशन होता है। So I think that is really great. You need somebody who is non-biased, who has understanding of the industry, at the same time is able to guide you as a friend and also feels a part of your journey. So I think that is really good thing about Mello.
All right. Thank you so much, Shashank, for that. All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you
Shashank,
for
right,
having me. Yeah.
for this very crisp and fast podcast.
नहीं,
Right, really helpful for you.
Thank you.